Next guest is a highly acclaimed director who worked on some really amazing projects. She directed Netflix shows, worked with HBO Europe and with TNT, amongst other things, and she received lots of prizes for her work as a director. She's also a member of the German and the Romanian and the European Film Academy. Please welcome Anca Miruna Lazarescu.
Hello.
Hello, nice to have you. So thank you very much for this wonderful story that you directed. I loved Hackerville, for example, very much, and I love the story about, of course, the hacking, but also that it's about two people from different genders and cultural backgrounds who work together. And maybe you can tell us something about the lead character of Hackerville, Lisa. How is this character reframing a female image, in your opinion?
First of all, I have to tell you that I share a lot of biographical details. I was born in Timisoara, and I was 10 and a half when I moved to Germany. And then I socialized and grew up here. So whenever I go to Romania, I feel like a German, and a lot of times in Germany, I feel like a Romanian. And on good days, I feel at home everywhere, and on bad days, I guess, nowhere. And this is a typical biography of someone who left too young to be a stable identity of one nationality, but too old already to not remember a lot of things that were really inside of you. So when I received the script, I realized there's a lot of chance of putting biographical experiences that I shared. So there's a lot of Lisa in me. For example, little stuff like, to be a vegetarian in Romania is really a luxury problem because everyone is eating meat. So I gave her this nuts, because due to this modern society rules, nuts are really super healthy, and you can do lots of monologues about nuts. So I let Lisa do some nuts. I wanted to create a very modern character. I mean, there was a lot already in the scripts, but I felt like the flavor and the deepness, it was missing. So what I tried is to have a modern but very ambiguous, sensitive character that is sometimes feeling lost, like in between the worlds. And this is something that I totally can share.
Mm-hmm. And how did you work with the lead actress to give her this? I find she has this kind of convincing and very calm presence throughout the whole show. How did you work with her?
First of all, she's a very talented actress. I was shooting my first feature film with her dad. So the real dad in Hackerville is her real dad. So this is an actor's family, and who also share a crazy story. They left in the 80s. So Anna grew up also in Germany. She brought a lot of authenticity because she has this accent, this German accent in Romanian, even though her mother language is Romanian, like mine. And there were all these little mistakes or misunderstandings that we took inside. So there was a frame, because you asked me about how I did work. I mean, there was a very clear frame in which she had a little bit of freedom. So whenever, this is how I love to work with actors. In general, I give them trust, and I give them a frame where they can feel really safe. But within this frame, they can try out, and then together sometimes we explore, and then magic is coming up on set.
Hopefully, yes. And do you think that a male director would have made maybe different decisions?
Well, as you've seen, Hackerville is directed also by a male, because we've been two. Igor, my colleague, and me, we were sharing, and yes, absolutely. there was a lot of discussions, also because Igor is, you know, from Romania, a Romanian director, and they considered me being a German director. And like I said, in Germany, a lot of times I'm the Romanian director. And then we realized, even though Andy Vasluianu, Anna's partner, or Lisa's partner, he is an actor I did win so many awards with, because he was my main lead in my very first short film, Silent River, actually my graduation film. And so I knew him since long, and I wanted him because I think he's the perfect Romanian. He's he's funny and witty and very warm-hearted, but of course also a little bit of a macho. And then we decided somehow, Igor and I, we talked a lot, but we kind of split. We split somehow who has the last word on what. And I got all the German part in the show, so to say, up until the point that I decided which watch, you know, Lisa was wearing. And he, of course, felt much more secure about the Romanian police and the Romanian part. So we discussed and decided nearly everything together, but you know, the last word was shared, so to say, the creative last word. And it worked out. Okay. Also between us, me and him, there were a lot of different approaches. I mean, it's a little bit like a marriage if you really share a baby, like a show, and you really have to do compromises, but you have to find the ways who is good in what. And Igor was, you know, always, he loved talking a lot and so on. It's not that I'm a calm person, but it's just that I felt like jumping in much more quicker, and I let the actors really play around. I'm much more playful. Igor, for example, loves to do jokes. I love the actors to do the joke, you know, and I'm more like, maybe these are some cliches, but I really feel more like the psychiatrist at the set. You have to have really a lot of sensitivity for all these different stories and backgrounds of these actors, and of course of your team. And due to the fact that I had 2 marriages, I also co-directed with Mark Monheim, but that time I was lead for We Are the Wave for Netflix. It's very interesting because you never have the experience to watch another director if you do alone a film. Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting, and I wouldn't have expected to be so different as a male and a female director, but there are really big differences. Of course, it's also relied on character traces.
Yes, of course, but would you say in general, does a female director maybe have a better or deeper understanding of female characters and therefore maybe a worse understanding of male ones?
Definitely not a worse one, because usually as a female, you grew up with all these male characters around you, starting from your father, who is probably a very important figure for you, and then move on with all the relationships you fucked up or not, or whatever. So no, I would say that, and I would say it's a bit of a different understanding. What I can see a lot of times now, because I'm exploring how it is to get scripts offered. When I started, I wrote a lot of times, but I don't see myself in first place as a writer. I see myself as a director who does a lot of rewrites. And this might be also, for example, I'm working now on a film, and I had this script, and there was this female character who just jumped on the boy and, you know, had on a wide field sex with him. And I was like, man, that's really interesting. And of course, it's a very nice visual scene, but why does she do it? And a lot of times you have really strange discussions if it is a male creator of this female world saying that, don't you know, I mean, women do this. And I'm like, yeah, Yeah, of course it can be, but still, whenever a woman does this, there's a reason behind. Maybe she lost a bet, or maybe she was provoked, or maybe she feels lonely, or maybe she feels super full of self-esteem. But there's always a motivation. Let's just search for it. And I would say this is probably the biggest cliche you can have. You know, a motivation for real sexual behavior, but there are also different other kinds of behavior. Why do you behave like this? And then I realized, well, you have to enter the discussion with your male character. And then a lot of things come up that you see that are totally different from the experience. And there are also a lot of misunderstandings or some cliches in your head, and you just have to discuss with the other one. And sometimes you do understand maybe also male behavior better whenever you look at your characters. It was very interesting. I had it with Igor, I had it with Mark, these discussions. I have it in this case with my co-writer.
But let's stick a little bit with the subject. Which typical male and female ascription get on your nerves the most? I mean, you started telling it already, but I'm still interested. What needs to be done to reframe these cliches that you were mentioning?
Sensitivity, I would say, and respect. It's double thinking and dig deeper, man. This is probably so. Whenever you are faced with someone, and it's definitely not only the male. It would be way too easy if a lot of women do sexism too. There are so many prejudices, and whenever you hit such a prejudice, if it's coming from a female colleague of yours or a male, and it's just too flat or it's too simple, then I always say, stop. I would like to enter your world and understand, where is this coming from? Why do you judge the way you judge? Why do you think this character should do this cliche thing? Where does it come from? Or why? And there are so many people in the film industry. I mean, it's such a world where you very easily, stamp someone. And whenever, I hear that this actor is very heavy to work, or this colleague or this DOP or this director is very hard to work on, I'm always like a bit skeptical, and I'm like, I want to know why. And usually whenever you meet the other one who might be so difficult, you find out is being anxious, having really bad experiences, being afraid of a lot of things, and having really gone through a lot of crises. And this is something I experienced for male and female partners.
Mm. And what experiences do you have in the industry when it comes to trust and to big budgets for women film projects?
I would definitely say share it just from my point of view, and I guess I'm very lucky. I mean, probably they would never say it in your face. I will give a bigger budget rather to a male director than to you. But due to the fact that right from the beginning with my very first short film, I was doing already a co-production between Romania and Germany. Then my first feature film had a huge scene with tanks, and I'm the only female director in Germany who ever got tanks. And I got 6 tanks, and I always said, man, I will never shoot this film without Russian tanks, because the story doesn't work. And I'm also very interested in action scenes, and I love action scenes. I love working with the stunt coordinators. I really don't have any I love it as a challenge to have like 2 or 3 units. With Netflix, I was controlling like 4 units, and I love this challenge. I see it as directing is sometimes, being a general in the war. So I guess I have a lot of, I would say something so cliche, like a lot of masculine attributes. I guess there is something else they see in me than just thinking, should we give her the budget or rather give it to a male, I guess I'm booked, or I'm asked booked as a director, also due to my experience.
Can you say something about the experiences with making films and having a family at the same time, about working conditions?
Yeah, it's impossible, but this is why I'm doing it.
So that should improve too, I think. And which key position do you think is the most important to support with female films?
Let me say a word about family.
Yes, please.
Honestly, and doing films. Honestly, having kids and being able to shoot is definitely the best thing in this world. I don't think there's ever something better. So I fight for it whenever I can, and I think things are improving, for God's sake. There is a bigger sensitivity nowadays. Sometimes there's a set kindergarten, or sometimes the production asks you if you need a nanny. I mean, for God's sake, my kids are already a little bit older. They're 10 and 13, and they babysit themselves. But I think something like this should be just supernatural, because everyone, doesn't matter if it's a male or female director, people who do films but also have a family and raise up children are usually those who can really tell very sensitively, in a very sensitive mode, the stories. I mean, this is what makes us human. And for every artist who's able to have also family, I only have respect and try to support him as much as I can. Her, doesn't matter.
I totally agree with you. And as the last question again, which key position do you think is the most important to push or to support?
All, I mean, really all, but especially, of course, those who are, totally under the shadow of this male power. Like, of course, a director of photography, a female director of photography, a focus puller, or all these jobs that are usually really just for men, I would say need even more support.